Not far from the recently opened Tanfran Racetrack Memorial, tucked away in the Tanfran Shopping Center, was an art exhibit honoring the legacy of the incarceration of Japanese Americans during World War II on the very grounds of the former Tanfran Detention Center. The exhibit, the Sansei Granddaughters Journey from Remembrance to Resistance Art, recently ended its one-month residence at the AZ Gallery. We met with the artists to record their personal reflections while they packed up their artwork.
So the exhibit had a very profound impact on me in many ways. One way was that the five of us artists were able to join together with a common theme and a common mission to share our personal stories, but also as a collective reach probably many more visitors, many more interested families than we would have had individually.
And it was really inspiring to see all the different ways that we were able to express this through women's work such as sewing, my innocent dreamer that I drew onto a cot to depict the children that were incarcerated at Tanfran Detention Center. And you'll see that there are bits of hay on the cot that represent what she had to make her mattress out of. I also included a augmented reality feature where one could use their iPhone to get more information, such as a narrative of Lucy and Kubo's mother, who wrote about their experience at Tanfran, and also voiceover reading about that experience. And I included also visuals of barbed wire along with horses and the spider webs and the smell, which I use flies to emphasize. Creating installations out of symbology, which was really important to each of us, such as the cherry blossoms for Kathy Fujii-Oka.
My cherry blossom installation, Altar of Solidarity. The inspiration to my work began when I learned the story about my grandfather and his younger brother being interned during World War II. And I only found out about it about 10 years ago. And it was all new to me. I was very surprised, and my uncle came to me with a photograph, and he asked me to basically do something with it because he knew that I was an artist. And so my installation is actually it's a healing altar, a healing space. And it started out as a healing space for my family who was interned. But since that time and COVID and things like Black Lives Matter, I opened my altar up to other communities of color.
Using different sewing processes, such as creating boro, the Japanese method of mending, and glass.
My detained alien enemy glass kimono. This kimono was made to honor the 120,000 people of Japanese ancestry who were unjustly incarcerated during World War II. The photographs are of these people taken while they were in the camps. For instance, this picture is of my grandfather, who went to 4 different camps since he had been arrested right after Pearl Harbor was attacked. At the Obon Festival in Japan, I found out that they use the wind chimes to call back the ancestors. And my very first kimono was an ancestral kimono. So I was really amazed that I had made kimono with the sound of wind chimes.
This beautiful stitching that Ellen Bepp created on the dark blue indigo fabric.
After my family came back from camp, they had a small box of things that they were able to take home. And one of the things was a copy of the will on a single piece of paper. And this is a copy of the will that he wrote while he was imprisoned. And it just gives a sense of, I think, his attitude and what he was reflecting on while they were in prison. So I felt like it was really important for me to incorporate that into a piece. I inserted parts of the will into the glassine envelopes, and I created the HAPPI jacket form, which is a traditional garment used in Japan, usually associated with festivals and happy times. But for my piece, it's more of a haunting and a tragic sort of memory.
As well as watercolors and being inspired by our ancestors' ways of creating, such as Sherry Arai DeBoer was.
I did these two pieces for this show. This one is entitled Growing Resistance. This one is entitled Creating Resistance. And they were inspired by the crafts that the incarcerees made in camp. Both sides of my family were incarcerated at Tule Lake. What I inherited was a lot of the raw materials, the shells, and also pieces of the shell art. So they made pieces of jewelry and corsages. So around the edges of this one, I have the different tools that the incarcerees were allowed to have to make the different crafts. But also illuminating the background is these two distinctive mountain peaks. Castle Peak at Tule Lake, and a guard tower, of course, and then Avalon.
It was amazing to see her family's watercolors that they did while they were in camp, and also the wooden chest with the small seashell brooches. So all that made our exhibition very rich.
So one of the great gifts, I think, from being able to participate in this exhibition was the conversations and the responses from visitors to the artwork that I was able to engage with. And so many people were open to share stories of their own, and I felt like I was really privileged to hear some of those stories.
By telling the personal stories, for instance, of my grandfather, right down here, who was arrested a year before his son was born, so he didn't get to meet his newborn son until over a year later. I think these personal stories, which is in all of our work, can bring home what can happen to a population of people based on racism and greed, prejudice, failure of our own government.
He talked to Stephen Seymour and Sandra Perez Vargas, owners of the AZ Gallery, to get their reflections on the exhibit.
Tanforan, more than 80 years ago, was used for, many see Tanforan today as a mall, but before that as a racetrack. And it was really our mission to bring to the public the fact that there was a blemish here on our country, on the area that we live in, because we brought people together simply because they were Japanese, rounded them up and put them in horse stalls.
It's just really amazing how it was hidden away from so many people. Now that it's out in the open, we hope we can get more people involved in making sure that things like this don't happen so readily because we turn our backs on our community.
The Sansei Granddaughters hope that this exhibition will inspire future generations and carry lessons from the past forward.
I feel like an important part of this exhibit is how we have inspired not only our generation, the Sansei generation, but the Yonsei and the Gosei, which is the 4th generation and 5th generation. I feel that it's very important that they become interested to carry on the history and also to become active in what's going on today. All of these things that are happening because of racism.
I believe that art is the way that people can go much deeper and can connect to their own experiences, whether they're Japanese Americans, or people from other countries and different cultures. So it's my hope that our work in these contemporary times and also for the future can broaden people's understandings of American history and connections to other cultures that may be going through these same sorts of experiences that our ancestors have experienced.
My hope is that we can all unite and stand together and create energy where we can have people listen and to hear our stories and to stop the prejudice and all the things that go with it, to stop it from happening in the future.
This is Max Nihei for Derek Tahara for the Nishi Bay Cafe.